Arsenal drew to PSV to stand themselves in the quarterfinals of the Champions League for the second year in a row and set up a match against the Galacticos Real Madrid. Now, while it was a dead rubber game on paper, Raheem Sterling really turned up and got man of the match in what is probably his best performance for Arsenal. So in this video, we're going to analyse every touch and what he did in the game. So let's get into it. Now, although this game on paper was basically done before it started and Arsenal played a very interesting lineup, it was one of them games where you can learn a lot about some of the fringe players, especially with other big games coming up. Now, while I think the team overall had good energy throughout it and didn't deserve to draw, I felt like we played quite well at times, especially going forward. I think Raheem Sterling in that first half especially was way better than I have seen him be before for Arsenal, and although maybe you can dubiously give him that man of the match award, I do think overall it was a big improvement. Now, first of all, I want to talk about the off the ball performance by him specifically. He's got a lot of criticism, I know, by other Arsenal creators and people in the media that he is just not trying enough, which is something I have agreed with. There has been a clear lack of effort with him when it comes to pressing and breaking down teams, and I'm not going to say in this game throughout it was completely clean. He definitely still had this sort of problem throughout it. There's moments where he goes to cover that central pass and the right side pass, and in the end when they put the ball over the top or past him, he shows no effort to almost run back, that it gives our defenders, especially on that right hand side, a lot of work to do. This happened quite a lot in the game and it is quite frustrating because ultimately we want the player to try his hardest or at least be running back. It's exactly what Arteta wants, and it's probably a big reason why he hasn't started too much in the last few months. Now, I will say when the ball was behind him he had this problem, but when the ball was in front of him I do think he showed a better level. There was a clear drive, especially at that start of the game, where he wanted to win the ball back. If the ball was played just in front of him, I thought his pressing was much better throughout this game, and he was very intent and being physical and wanted to actually get that contact. There was also a few times I want to give credit to where he presses the centre back into the goalkeeper and the goalkeeper ended up kicking the ball out. This happened 2 or 3 times, where it comes from him just having that initiative to make them runs and press, which is exactly what Arsenal want from their wingers and what we've wanted by Sterling for such a long time. Now, it's only fair though if I talk about some of the disadvantages as well. I still feel like he is someone that waits for the ball to come towards him, and although I think Trossard does this especially in attacking ways, which I don't hate, I really hate when Sterling does this in defensive areas. There's one in the second half which many of you probably will remember, where the ball is just slowly rolling to him and he just doesn't move. He waits for the ball to come to him, he takes a touch and then loses it, with the guy behind him showing that initiative to get in front of him and win the ball back. They nearly score from this and it ends up being a chance we shift out for a corner, and this is just unforgivable. You cannot be waiting for the ball to be passed to you in them defensive areas and taking your time. There needs to be more intent, which I think he showed at the start of the game, and even if you are tired, it's professional football, that is not good enough. So that's definitely something I'm still very disappointed with, because it wasn't like he only did this once, he did this a few times as well. Now, what I will say though, Sterling in this game, especially early on, tried to actually make things happen. When Arsenal set up in this game, we had Tierney on the left, and Tierney is quite a one-dimensional player at the end of the day, especially in forward areas. You know he's going to want to be one-on-one and try and cross the ball in, which didn't really work, so we kind of had to revolve a lot of that build-up on that right, and Sterling had to have a lot of touch on the ball, which he did. Early on in the game, he was picking the ball up, he was coming in defensive areas and taking quite a while on the ball, which for most players I wouldn't like, but for him I think he needs that sort of control, and I'm glad he was a bit more confident with his ability to have the ball a lot of the time. He was even coming centrally quite a lot and asking for the ball, and physically he's not necessarily going to do much, but I still liked their movements nonetheless. And there was a clear intent of him off the ball, at least in attacking ways, to actually get into their moments where he runs into the box and runs through. That is ultimately why we need someone to run through, and he is the best suited for it in that team that was playing. And this is where his almost goal comes from. We break from a corner in the 42nd minute for the team. Zinchenko brings it down in the centre of the park and Sterling is off. He does a brilliant run, I think incredible from the right, bends it centrally through the defender, and he does brilliant to get on the end of that. He shows great pace to keep in front of the defender. It does end up pulling him a little bit wide, and obviously that shot is not brilliant. Quite an easy chip, quite an easy save for the keeper, but ultimately all I want from him is that effort and that ability to actually create chances and be there. So obviously you want him to score, and I do think that's a poor finish, but I'm still going to applaud the actual movement to get into that moment, because it's not something we have really seen from him before. And all game I just felt like he was trying to make things happen. He is still not the best footballer in the world at this age, he still probably is not going to be that guy that gets effective shots away and really does too much. There was a few times where him and Ben White I felt like linked up well. There was some good overlaps, some good inside passes. It didn't quite come off because someone would make a poor pass or a poor touch, or Sterling would come inside and he just quite doesn't have that physicality to compete anymore, but at least he is trying, and that is the main thing, and at least they were trying to create chances throughout the game, which I enjoyed. I felt like he was being much better in them central areas throughout it. I think on the wing, although he can beat a player one-on-one occasionally, which we obviously will talk about, he still is not really going to be able to take players on, so he needs to use good movement where he comes inside a lot and works off players. Felt like Zinchenko was coming inside on that right hand side a bit for him, and that was helping him. Some good interchange I felt like in the first half, and when he comes inside he also has a lot longer on the ball, which is something he hasn't really wanted. I think in a lot of the games I've watched him play, he just hasn't wanted that ball. He hasn't wanted to do anything. He's been kind of scared to actually have much touches on the ball, but in this game that was a bit different. He was bringing the ball into them central areas, he was taking control, he was looking for through balls, and he's being direct. There's a chance in the last minute of the game where he takes a lot of touches on the ball and he just goes for it, which I like. He passes it into Odegaard. Odegaard does a back heel. I think it takes a deflection and goes through for him, and he gets on the end of it. It hits his shin, and it's a brilliant save by the goalkeeper. But ultimately, that is one of them chances he has just created with Odegaard into them tight areas, where he just went for it and actually decided to finally create something for once, rather than just doing that easy pass back, which at least I like that intent going forward. And although Sterling probably definitely should have scored in this game, there's a few chances where obviously he just doesn't get that finish in there. He is going to come away with the game with 2 assists. Now, do I think his performance overall was warranted of 2 assists? Probably not, but I do think that first goal he still deserves credit for. Still, a lot of people say, well, Zinchenko does a brilliant finish at the edge of the box here, so you can't really give Sterling some credit, but this isn't lucky in a sense. He does brilliant to actually get to that pass back where they give it to PSV on the left. He actually runs intently to win the ball back, shows some physicality with a little bit of a push into the defender, and ends up passing it through as he gets fouled, which is exactly what we wanted. Obviously, Zinchenko does brilliantly to take it into his path and put it into the net, but that is definitely something to think about, and I do think that intent was there. And although we spoke about obviously him not being the best one-on-one player out wide anymore given his age, the goal is really well taken, the second one, where he brings it down on the wing. There's a little bit of space before the guy goes to get him, and he just runs into that space like Bukayo Saka would, like Ethan Nwaneri probably would as well. Take players on, and he does really well to match up physically with the first guy, and then Malacia comes in late and he goes past him too, and he clips the ball brilliantly into the box. It's just over Moreno, but then you've got your box crashing midfielder Declan Rice running in to head it into the centre of the goal. Finally, we had an actual warranted good cross in this game, and that was one of the only times I think Moreno actually got into the box, and he ends up being the dummy where it goes over him and Rice runs in, so it's just worked so well. And I know that yet again he's not that player that can go in the wing and just create things because of his physicality, but you trying to actually intently run and make things happen created 2 assists at the end of the day and could have created you a goal with 2 good chances, and I do think that is a big improvement for Sterling. And by the stats you can see as well, he really did try a little bit more. He had 2 assists, 3 shots in the game overall, 20 out of 23 passes with 3 chances created at a 0.8 expected goals and expected assists. And although he had 2 big chances missed and 1 out of 4 accurate crosses, which was that cross, I did like a lot of the play he had. There was a few times as well where he would get some of these crosses in where he would take a player on quite actively, and if that player never went in for that physical tackle, he was able to go past him. I think this is one of the first games I actually saw Sterling go past a player, mostly I think in them half spaces more than out wide, but it was very encouraging. And he won 5 out of his 9 ground duels, which is just better than positive, and he even got into 9 ground duels, which is more than he has been getting into because he's been so scared before, so it definitely shows a lot of improvement. 4 times he was fouled as well, which is one of the benefits of Sterling having it. It's always been a bit of meme with him that he takes too long on the ball and then he gets taken out, but I actually think that's what he needs right now. He needs to have more time in the ball to get more confident and not just pass that ball backwards every time. You know, run at players, give them a go, especially in a game like this where all you can do is learn. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I think it was much better. Now, will Sterling end up actually pushing that and doing that in the future? I'm not sure about it. I still think this game is quite concerning by his effort levels, especially in the second half, where it comes to pressing, where it comes to waiting for the ball to come towards him and working hard defensively. He does it sometimes, but you need to do that a lot more. And also we have to speak about it. That yellow card he got in the last minute where he slides that player and the follow through ends up taking him out, it's just not really a good decision. Now, it means he's suspended for the first game against Real Madrid. Madrid at the Emirates. Obviously, he probably wasn't going to play at all in that game. Now Martinelli's back. When Neri would have played, you've got to think it wasn't looking likely that he would have got any game time, but it's still not really the president. You play a good game, you know, take the result and you're man of the match with you. There's no reason to go sliding in for someone that is so experienced, but I won't hold that against him too much because I don't think it's going to matter too much, but still a little bit disappointing there. And that's the thing about this whole video. I don't want to go in it and be like, oh, Sterling has been amazing. It's been a much better performance than he has had, and he deserves credit for that. And I think man of the match maybe shouldn't have gone to him, but I still think he played relatively well. But there is big question marks still on that effort level. I know he's not the fittest player in the world, but I still want a little bit more sometimes. I think his second half in moments kind of let down his first half, but it's still, his first half was very encouraging where I'm still positive enough from this game, and it's much more than we've got before, so we have to take that. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about Sterling, and I will be doing a video about a Real Madrid preview today, talking about them, the Atleti, and what we can expect as well. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.